Hello, this is Michelle at East Ave Art, and today I'm going to show you how I painted this robin egg nest. Okay, so my supplies include 2 cups of clean water. I have just a regular mechanical pencil. I think this is like a 2B. I also like these kinds of erasers because they're flexible and they do really well with the watercolor paper. So this is Arch's watercolor paper. It's just kind of like a scrap piece that I cut off from sort of a bigger sheet. And so I kind of like to use some of these little like smaller sheets for like cute little projects that I'm working on. But this is a 140-pound cold press. So you can kind of see it's got that like toothier, it's toothier because it's cold pressed. So it's a little bit more textured than the hot press, which is smooth, which I don't usually paint on. I have these Daler Rowney watercolors. This is the Shada Campbell version, and I just think this is such a cute little set. Really nice watercolors there. I like to activate them with this spray bottle. I have a paper towel, and I also have just a whole bunch of brushes that I use. Let's see, I probably, for a project like this, I'm gonna use like a round brush, so a number 8 will be good. And I'll usually pull out sort of a finer brush, like maybe a number 2, for any kind of detail work. All right, so that is my whole supply list for this project, and we can go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna start just by sketching a sort of like wonky, lumpy circle. Of course, the nest isn't gonna be a perfect circle. So I didn't use any kind of like household items or tools to get a good circle there. And then I sketched in a circle inside of that circle that would kind of be where, you know, the deeper part of the nest where the eggs are sitting. And then I just sketched in kind of 3 nice egg-shaped ovals to represent the eggs. So I'm trying to sketch this in pretty light because I don't like my pencil marks to show through the paint. Of course, watercolor paint is like a little bit more transparent. So you kind of run the risk of that if your pencil lines are too dark. And then a few times in here, I just sort of made some adjustments. And I like just kind of lifting up the graphite or the pencil marks with that kind of rubbery eraser because it doesn't damage my cotton watercolor paper as much as maybe the eraser on the top of my pencil would. So at this point, I've activated my paints with my little spray bottle, and I'm just kind of scrubbing with the side of my brush at those little pans and getting sort of different shades of brown for the nest. And I'm mixing in a lot of water as well. This is a really nice paint set. I like kind of how creamy the paints are. And so, you know, a few times you'll see me like sometimes adding in white if I want to get a little bit of a softer color. And I'm going to start by taking some clean water and dropping that water in all the way around the nest and avoiding the eggs because I'm not ready to paint those yet. So I'm gonna work kind of fast here. And you want the water to be not pooling, but just sort of like a shiny sheen. And you want it kind of evenly distributed. So you'll kind of get a nice soft result. As you know, if you have some areas more wet than others, you could get some like cauliflowering blooming. And I'm not a super big fan of that. So now that I got the whole area sort of wet, I'm just going to drop in the lighter brown color. I always suggest with watercolor It's kind of a must, actually. It's not really a suggestion, but you really want to start with the lightest colors on your palette first, and then get darker as you go, because you can't backtrack with watercolor. So it's best to kind of just build up the color slowly. And so that's what you see me doing here, by just kind of putting down a really watered down brown initially, and then kind of seeing how that dries and seeing how I want to modify it. And one other thing that I should mention is I also did not wet the area where I kind of wanted some little like berries and some twigs with leaves on them interspersed around this wreath. And so I left those areas, you know, dry so that I can kind of fill them in later. Now, at this point, I'm going to mix up some of the robin egg blue, and to achieve sort of that really nice creamy blue, I put in some white there as well. And I'm following the same process with the eggs, where I am just getting the whole area wet, and I'm just going to drop in the blue color. Now, I will say I let the wreath dry before I moved on to the eggs, because as you can see, that blue is touching where the wreath is, and if both of those areas were wet, they would bleed together, and you'd kind of end up with this like weird smudgy brown blue mix, which you wouldn't want. So it's always important to keep in mind where your areas are fully dry, especially if you're going to paint an area that's touching. And one of the things that I tried to keep in mind with this painting was my light source, and trying to make it clear to the viewer that this is a 3D rounded object. And one of the ways that I tried to achieve that is sort of kind of on the sides of the egg where the light wouldn't really be reaching. I put in almost sort of like a dark blue, almost like a purpley, just to kind of be like where the shadow is, because there wouldn't quite be light there. And you can also see I have sort of the lightest bit on the top where maybe the light would be reflecting off the top of that egg. And you can see I'm just kind of playing around with the paint there. Sometimes I pull up a little bit just to kind of keep that, you know, light reflection area clear. And I'm just sort of, you know, we'll paint around a little bit more blue and just wait until I like what I see, I guess. One other thing I decided to do was to go in with a brown that is a darker color and just a slightly thicker consistency and slightly darker than the base of the wreath. And I'm just going through and kind of like haphazardly putting in little swatches or little like sprigs to show kind of all like the little twigs that you would see on a wreath, or I'm sorry, a nest. And then I'm also adding in some of the little like greenery from the twigs, I think, and as well as some of the berries. Okay, so you saw me kind of like touch that egg to make sure, the blue one at least, to make sure that it is fully dry because the next egg that I'm going to paint is touching that. So I really didn't want the colors to bleed. I wanted them to look like, you know, different eggs, and I didn't want to have too much overlap. So I'm going to follow the same process that I did on the last egg. So I put down the clean water, and now I'm dropping in the color, and I'm dropping kind of different variations of the color in, especially where I would think there would be some shadow, because I'm trying to show sort of like this is a rounded 3D object. And, you know, this is a really fun part of watercolor. I kind of like just playing with the water and seeing where the paint goes and seeing how much I need to manipulate it or not. So I just kind of enjoy this part, so I'll leave you to watch it. Okay, so again, I waited until there was both of my eggs were dry before I painted in this third one. And for the last time, I guess, I followed the same process that I did with the first two eggs. Once all three of my eggs are fully dry, I'm going to add in a darker, thicker brown around the wreath nest. I keep calling this a wreath. It does have some wreath elements, I think, with the berries and stuff. But anyway, so I'm adding just, again, like kind of haphazardy, just kind of adding these little wisps and twigs with that darker consistency. And I'm also going to use that dark consistency to be in the base of the nest as well. So that's going to be like the area that's not really getting hardly any sunlight, right? So I'm going to paint that the darkest. And this requires everything to be dry, you know, because I certainly don't want any of the brown mixing in with those blue robin eggs. That would be pretty annoying and would ruin my painting. So I'm just kind of spending some time just adding these little wisps and stems to my berries so that I'm making sure, for sure that my robin's eggs are totally dried. One way that you can resolve this is you can use a heating tool. Sometimes I didn't really invest in a heating tool. I just use a blow dryer. And sometimes I do that if I don't feel like waiting for something to dry. So that's kind of a suggestion. And I'm also adding a little bit of lettering there. So I like to do it in pencil first. Again, I was just kind of like wasting time to make sure that my eggs were totally dry before I did this part, because I used some really kind of thicker paint. So what I mean by thicker is there's less water mixed in, because I want it to be really dark and to feel kind of like a shadow color there. So even though I know this will be the darkest part of my painting, I still start that dark painting lighter than maybe I think I need to, because I always know I can build it up and make it darker if I want, but I can't make it lighter, right? So I start with kind of almost like a medium tone brown, and I kind of fill in that area where like that base of the nest would be, and it's not really getting a lot of sunlight. And then I kind of like evaluated and decided, to add a little bit more of a darker color into there so that the contrast is a little bit sharper between the nest that is in sort of full light and what's sort of like down further deeper into the nest. So then I, decided to even add more darkness into this, just to heighten that contrast. And I think I'm getting somewhere with that. I kind of like the appearance of that. And it's starting to look a little bit more like a nest to me. So at this point, I'm going to go over my pencil lettering with of the words Happy Easter with my fine liner there. And I think that's like maybe a 0.3 nib. And I also decided to do a little bit of faux calligraphy. So my way of doing that is to just add a little bit of a thicker line anytime I do what's called a downstroke. And basically what a downstroke is it's like going towards you as you're writing. And one thing I try to do to save my pens is when I go to fill in those downstroke lines, I like to just use a really thin, small round brush there and some black paint and just fill in. And because honestly, the toothiness of the cold press paper isn't super great on your fine liner nibs because they can be a little bit sensitive and split, and that's not really the best paper for them. So I think this is just a kind of a happy medium to just use your paint and a kind of finer round brush. Okay, so here is my final product, my little happy Easter robin egg nest. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you so much for watching. If you like this, please hit like and subscribe. Thanks so much.